You read the title of the video, now here is some rules. Firstly, I'll only be covering entire franchises, not individual games. If I have to somehow rank or explain what Guiltygear XX Accent Core Plus means, I'll kill myself. Secondly, I won't be considering game franchises where the title origins don't come from games, which means no Dragon Balls, no Narutos, none of that. I don't even know how I would rank those. Thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, I don't know, I know there was supposed to be a third rule, but I forgot. Without any further ado, let's do this. Streetfighter. I feel like this title is pretty self-explanatory. This is the Street Fighter. There's dudes in streets. They're fighters. They're fighting. There's streets. They're fighting in streets. They're Street Fighters. Really, Street Fighter 2 was the Street Fighter game, to be redundant. I mean, you even beat up a car. There's no more literal way to fight a street. From then on, some of the games are like, what does this even have to do with street fighting? But I feel like the last game, Street Fighter 6, did a really good job in bringing the theme back to, well, street fighting. Funnily enough, I don't think there's many characters who would call themselves Street Fighters, and there's no mention of Street Fighter or street fighting itself in many of the games. The tournament isn't even called that, which isn't necessary for it to be a fitting name, but still, I think this is a pretty solid 9 out of 10 for the most classic fighting game. Mortalkombat! The previous title was obvious, this like a slap in the face, or perhaps an uppercut that does 30% damage for no good reason. What do you expect me to say? The title says Mortal Kombat, they're doing Mortal Kombat, they're called combatants, the tournaments are called Mortal Kombat, the combat is mortal. Killing people is literally part of the game. It's just perfect. It just makes perfect sense. 10 out of 10. Lore in real life, the title is just makes perfect sense. It's iconic for a reason. Tekken! I'm starting to see a pattern here between games that are literally just called after a tournament that happens in them. It's the Tekken tournament, and in case you don't know Japanese, that means Iron Fist. That's why the characters in Tekken are called Iron Fisters. No, they're not. Don't ever say that to anyone else. So like Iron Fist, because their fists are hard and like punching. So probably a Japanese proverb or something. I don't really know. It's just like fist punching. It's barely related to fighting. It's just a tournament inside. I guess it's good enough. Makes enough sense. 8 out of 10. Not really the right type of person to see the true value in this name, if you know what I mean. El Tequino. Okay, yes, the King of Fighters tournament. Try saying that 3 times quick. They're fighters. They're trying to see who's the King of Fighters, which is a title doesn't really make sense. I mean, if you're a fighter, how are you gonna follow monarchy? Like, how are you gonna be a King of Fighters? Like, if that kind of doesn't translate. But that's the tournament name. They're fighters. They're the tournament of the King of Fighters. They're trying to see who's the King of Fighters. The title kind of makes perfect sense, but at the same time, it's kind of just like. I guess yeah, but like the King of Fighters, like the title just says that, I feel like it's a bit too on the nose at a certain point, like you know what I mean, like no offense, like I love Mexicans. 9 out of 10. Please spare me. Please don't send the cartel after me. Samcho. Listen, I don't even have music for this section. That's how you know that I have no idea what this game is even about. It's called Samurai Shodown. There's a lot of them. There's like 7, I think. They're samurai and they're like doing showdown. Very basic but fitting title. I don't know how this relates to the lore of any of the games, because again, never played a single one in my life. But like that lady isn't a bow. Like you can't tell me that's a samurai. Look at how she's dressed, man. I'm just gonna slap like a 7 out of 7.5, and like someone correct me if you like this series. If you people exist, what's even the deal with it? Like what? Listen, I don't even know. I lied, okay? I lied. I said something that isn't true. I have no idea what Virtua Fighter even is, despite how like important it is to like 3D fighting games. I've never played a single game. I've barely even seen it. What's it even about? I had to look it up. Why is it called Virtua Fighter? Like what's the point? What's the point? What's the point of anything here? What's even going on? Do Virtua Fighter fans exist? Are you real? Like 3 out of 10, they're fighters. I don't know what a Virtua is though. Soulcalibur 4. That's the good one, right? Right? Quick lore lesson. Soulcalibur is the name of one of the blades that drives the plot in the Soulcalibur games. That's really all you need to know. The Soulcalibur is sort of good. It's really that easy. It's a sword. It makes sense in the lore. It's important. Makes sense why you call that game like that name for the audience. It's very attractive. Has to do a lot with the game. Makes sense in the universe. It's pretty simple, to be honest. It's just a Soulcalibur. This is like an easy 8 out of 10. Did you notice that I didn't really have a joke for this section? That's because I only included Soulcalibur out of bias. There's really nothing much to say here. Skullgirls. Okay, completely unrelated to the topic of the video. When announcing some of the names for these games, I try to make them seem like when the games are voiced, like the titles, when they are said in their respective games or in promotional materials. I've realized the word Skullgirls has never been said by the Skullgirls narrator. In the game, it doesn't come up when the title comes up. There's no promotional material in which the name is said. There's just nothing. I don't know how to pronounce this. Well, I know how to pronounce it, but I can't chimichimiya this, you know? Like Mortalkombat, I can't do that. Like I'm sure the word Skullgirl has been said singular as in the title, and maybe Skullgirls for the multiple someone story mode, but I'm not even sure about that. I mean, like, what context is that even? I'm missing the point. Okay, the point is, there's a creature, a title called the Skullgirl. It's a girl possessed by the Skull Heart in game, and like the main villain and a big focus of the plot is on the Skull Heart and thus the Skullgirl. But like the whole game being named after that, it's a good name. Don't get me wrong. I'm not evaluating whether the name is good, but it doesn't really like make sense. It's just the title of like the potential main villain in some of the stories, like that's like if Streetfighter was called Dictator. You feel me? Like that's kind of weird. Like the playable characters are sometimes called Skullgirls, but it's always like made me feel incorrect. The nerdy part of my brain, because they're not Skullgirls. That's the point. They're not the Skullgirl, and some of those aren't even girls anymore with the DLC. It's like it once made sense, but like it doesn't make as much sense anymore. It's like I put like a 7 out of 10, and you can't say I'm biased for my favorite fighting game, but like what's going on here? Your only move is hustle, or YOMI Hustle, or the reason half of you are even subscribed to this channel to begin with. Alright man, this music is just painful. This is the sound of getting destroyed for like 20 minutes straight and there's nothing to do about it. Music aside, I have to say though, in terms of making sense considering the game, this title is egregious. Like again, not to speak of the quality of the title, it's somehow still attractive and well enough despite making absolutely no sense. Like really, decontextualize yourself completely. Pretend you don't know the game. What does your only move is hustle even mean? What is this, gambling game? But right, that, your only move is hustle, it's just not true. Your only move is not hustle. Hustling is just a taunt in this fighting game. In some cases, your only option may be to hustle for a few seconds, although you can always wait, so it's not even really true. But with mods, that's not true anymore. And even if you play with the base roster characters, you're not often in a situation where your only move is hustle. And what does this have to do with the fights themselves? I guess there's no lore to base out of, but they're stick figures fighting. What does this have to do with hustling? Why is the taunt even called hustle? There's like so many questions. Like if there's an avid fan of this game, a lore keeper perhaps somehow, there's probably like a reason that has to do with the development cycle or something, or some backstory, but I don't know. 2 out of 10. Guiltygear. Right, it's time to be honest. How many of you skipped directly to this section? Whether you did or not, welcome to Guiltygear. And whether you're a fan of the game or you're not, or you're a fan of the game but you don't know anything about the lore, filthy Stripe player. This is Soul Bad Guy. You're probably familiar with him, along with the fact that he is called the Guiltygear. Why is that the case? Why is he so guilty? I mean, he killed his wife. I mean, not to oversimplify it, but that's kind of just there. He killed his wife. Just where my problem begins. The entire fighting game franchise is called after a title the protagonist had one time. It's literally like never really been used after, and it doesn't even apply anymore. He's not guilty, he isn't gear, and the title doesn't even make that much sense. I mean, it's just the cool factor, really. Imagine if it was called the Sada Machine. It doesn't make sense in universe because, like, okay, some of the fights are happening because of him, but again, he's not really the Guiltygear anymore, and two, not really? And like outside of the universe, it's even weirder. It's just, imagine if Blazblue was called the Black Beast. It is like a 4 out of 10 to me. It's a cool title, but it's carried by that fact and the alliteration. I love alliteration. It's just fun to say Guiltygear, 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 Guiltygear. Now, some of the more astute of you may have noticed 10 minutes ago, I said I wouldn't be covering any IPs that didn't start as games. Not that every game had to have started as a fighting game. Yeah, I made a specific exclusion for one game, Granblue Fantasy Versus. That's a mouthful. But I, dear viewer, barely know anything about the game and have barely played it at all, so instead, we're having our first guest star of the channel. It is Boom, the red and black director cutter.
Thanks, Dens. I'll take things from here. I'll be expecting my payment in gold doubloons tomorrow morning. Now, Guiltygear and Blazblue have probably already been gone over, and while seeming pretty bizarre at first in terms of naming conventions, they do make sense once you play either of the games. Guiltygear, of course, being named after our main character Soul's most famous alias, and Blazblue being named after the source of power that most people use in the series, if not the main protagonist and antagonist. Granblue, however, is a little bit different. You see, unlike Guiltygear and Blazblue, which were always fighting games, Granblue was initially a phone adventure game that got turned into a new phone adventure game that got turned into a semi-open world game that got turned into an anime and then got turned into a fighting game. So unlike the other two, or any of the games that we've gone over before, their priority is less centric around the instant recognizability that most fighting games would go for. However, there's still a good meaning behind it. You just sort of have to search a little bit for it. Granblue is a combination of three things. The first part of the name being the male protagonist of the series' name, Gran. Okay, well that may seem really lazy at first, kinda like if Ryu was called Mr. Third Strike instead, but he's likely named Gran because Gran is a topographic and area-based name. And the story of Granblue is all about traversing Sky Islands and witnessing the world, seeing stuff like wondrous cosmic night skies, fervent volcanoes, 2B from Nier Automata, the most wondrous wonders of the world. Now, as for the blue part of Granblue, it's in reference to the blue sky that all the characters are constantly moving around, traversing, and shifting between and sharing their allegiances to. Now, it's also a reference to the fact that I forgot what I was going to. The blue part of Granblue is in reference to both how the sky that all the characters operate under is blue. But it's also in reference to one of the main characters, Viria, who parties around with Gran and the female protagonist at all times. She's got blue hair and blue powers that make Gran and the female Granblue. Being blue and Granblue means that you have bigger power compared to the not blue. Are you following me right now? Now, here's the weirdest part of Granblue's name, the fantasy part. Now, at first, you may be thinking, well, fantasy just refers to the fantastical nature of the series. After all, it's a high fantasy setting, right? WRONG! I mean, it's technically right, but you're WRONG! You see, the fantasy part of Granblue Fantasy is an etymology to how the female protagonist of the series, Digita's name in Japanese kanji, makes up the latter half of the word fantasy. The same can be said for Gran with the word Granblue, but I held off on that info since it would be confusing if I started with the kanji instead of the English version, which I'm pretty sure most people would be able to connect a lot sooner. Now, if you want to get nerdy, Digita's name should be something closer to Sita in order to fit with the kanji more, but I imagine Digita just sounded better to the writers. Lastly, since if you couldn't tell for some reason this is a fighting game, the versus part is just to let people know at stores that this is like one of those Tekken video games. And the rising piece they added was both to inform people that it was a re-release with some DLC characters and features now baked into the game, and that I don't have a second reason. Can I please see my family?
Again, thank you for your work. Deposit him at the ArcCorp Revival Facility. Make sure to have his memories wiped. Now, where was I? Oh yes. Thanks to our great guest for featuring in this video and occupying How many minutes on Granblue alone? The other blue. As my temporarily deceased servant put it a couple moments ago, there is more than enough background to justify the name Blazblue within the universe. It's just very convoluted, related to the power source. There's different names for it, and to be quite fair, it doesn't really regard most, if not, it doesn't regard all of the fights. Like, some of them have nothing to do with the Asher / Blazblue, which is also called the Asher, not always called the Blazblue, to add to the confusion. Blaze is also not spelled like that. What were they doing? I also don't know why it's called that. Like, you're gonna make the fighting game series based on like the power of the other world. Okay, the Guiltygear boundary. Listen, I like Blazblue as much as the other three guys combined, but even the footage doesn't want me to linger on this game. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 because of the convoluted reasons. And if you disagree, comment all the lore reasons as to why I should make this game higher. I dare you. Under night in birth. They are in birth and they are under night. That seems like a passing grade to me. That's pretty clear cut. I give it a 7 out of 10. Passes. If you watched this far, I'm genuinely thankful. This video took a lot of effort to put out and a lot of time. Remember to show your support to the channel and all that other stuff that I won't bore you with. Here's the rankings, and remember that all the music and footage used is credited in the description. Now if you mind me, I have a banger to listen to.
Now, the first part of the name is for the protagonist of the... Okay, you can cut the ending bit out here.